can hear you. All right, Mr. Trutna, back here. We're here with Michael Curtis. Say hi, Mike.
What's
You probably couldn't hear him. He's too shy. We're on number 7. We got to do 7, 8, and 9. Here, let me turn it over here so you can see it. Okay, so number 7. The height of a golf ball is modeled by the equation h of t is equal to negative 18. Parentheses x minus 1, close the parentheses to the second power plus 62. Where t is time in seconds, that's going to be important for us. T is time in seconds. And h is the height from the ground, and that's going to be important for us as well, where h is the height from the ground. Okay? And so part A, it says, what is the time it takes for the golf ball to reach its highest point? All right, so if you notice, when I'm looking at the equation that they gave me, this equation right here, it is in vertex form. Okay, so because it's in vertex form, once again, this tells us that, and I'll write it over here, that the a value is negative 18. It tells us that the h value is positive 1. Remember, h is always opposite of inside the parentheses. And it tells us that the k value is 62. So that tells us that the vertex is going to be the point positive 1, positive 62. Okay, now that's going to be important because, remember, if I were to sketch out a graph of this, of a golf ball being hit into the air, it's gonna look like this. The golf ball will go up, it will reach its maximum height, also known as the vertex, and then the golf ball will start its downward flight back until it hits the ground, with the x-axis being the ground. Okay, so that point right there, the vertex, which is 1 and 62, which I got from h and k, which I got from the formula, is going to help me answer my next 2 questions. Okay, so part A, what is the time it takes the golf ball to reach its highest point? Okay, so one of these numbers is the time that the golf ball reached its highest point at. Is it 1 or is it 62? Okay, well, that would be 1. Okay, this right here is time. All right, so that means it's going to take 1 second for the golf ball to reach its highest point. Okay, part B, what will the maximum height of the golf ball be? Well, this right here is the maximum height. Okay, so that would be 62. All right, hopefully that made sense. Okay, part 8, 3 equivalent equations for f of x are given below. Bye, Michael. All right, are given. Which form reveals the zeros of f of x without changing the equation? Okay, so all this is saying is that notice we have 3 different forms of a quadratic here. So this form, we've talked about it. This part A is in vertex form. Okay, part B is what we call factored form. And we've worked on that quite a bit in class. And then part C is what we call, and we've talked about this one, that's what's called standard form. All right, so which one of these forms tells us the zeros of the graph? In other words, which form tells us the solutions to the graph without having to change it at all? That would be B. Okay, why? Because, well, my solutions would be, you don't have to find it, would be negative 12 and positive 4. So the factored form reveals what we call the zeros. Okay, number 9. Number 9 says find the zeros of each equation. So in order to find the zeros in part A, what we're going to do is we're going to have to use the square root to get this answer here. Okay, so what we do is, the first move is we're going to add 48 to both sides of the equation. We're solving for x, so we're going to isolate it. The 48s will cancel out. My new equation would become 3x squared is equal to 0 plus 48, which is 48. Then I would divide both sides of the equation by positive 3. Okay, that would give me x squared is equal to 16. 48 divided by 3 is 16. And now, in order for me to find my zeros, I would take the square root. Okay, And the square root of 16 would give me my answer. So what's the square root of 16? Well, it's positive or negative 4. So the answer to part A would be positive or negative 4. And you have to put both. Okay, now in part B, we're going to do a different method than part A. We're not going to use square roots to find what we call the zeros. In part B, what we're going to do is we're going to factor, okay, before we do that. And notice the difference between the two problems. In part A, we had 3x squared minus 48. Well, that's a binomial. In part B, we had x squared minus 17x plus 30. That's a trinomial. So when you have a trinomial, you want to factor it to get your zeros, which will be your answers. Okay, so how do I factor a trinomial? Well, I make the t-table. Okay, I put the plus 30 right here. I'm going to have to find two numbers that multiply to make 30. I put the minus 17 right here. I'm going to have to find two numbers that add to make negative 17.